Hello, my name is Saremy and I'm a fit expert and a pattern drafter of over 30 years. I wanted to give you a fun little video about how to think about pants fitting. Now, pants fitting, as we all know, is a little bit daunting. It's stress-inducing, it's emotional, it's frustrating, it seems very mysterious. And so I'm always trying to give people another way to look at things so that maybe something clicks for you. And it may click today, and it may not click 2 months from now. So pants fitting is kind of like that. And it's a little hard to wrap your head around sometimes. So I thought I would present to you how I think of it as planes, and that we are trying to marry two completely different shapes to one another while trying to fit different planes and look at it differently. So, okay, I'm editing this right now, and I just want to slip this one little thing in here. So a little over halfway through this video, I do this comparison thing, and I really want you to stay for it because I take two people who measure exactly the same. So their waist and their hip are the same. And I show you how they would maybe cut and try and fit the same size, but they will take up the space completely differently because their abdomens are completely different shapes. So just because they measure the same doesn't mean that their pant is going to be the same dimensions and have the same negative space available to them. So hang in there. If you're not familiar with my half pant form here, I just want to orient you a little bit. So this is a cross section of pants. And I know the video angle is kind of weird. Videoing yourself trying to look at something at the same angle you're seeing it is really tricky. So you're going to have to see my hands in a weird place. So anyway, this is the back view. So here's the butt. Here's the inseam right here. I call this jelly bean because everybody's kind of shaped like a jelly bean here, and I am no different. And you know, here's the side view. So here's the out seam. Here's the front view here. And there's a yoke here. So this is a pretty well-fitting pant. This fitting this form isn't ideal since things can change on it since it is basically stuffed. But it's such a great tool in trying to like troubleshoot things and also see what is actually happening, right? So when I'm thinking about pants fitting, I think about the body in different kind of sections. And when we're fitting, we always start with the top, right? We always start from here up, the hip up. We want to get the placement of the waist where you want it. So if is it too long from here to here or here to your crotch, then you need to pull up the pants, and you also need to get that circumference around the waist correct. Do not worry about this down here. Like, just don't think about it. I know it's really hard because the first thing we're thinking about is this area right here. It's the same with fitting tops and things. The first thing a lot of people with cleavage and breasts are thinking about how this area fits, right? Or how it feels like when we're lifting up our arms, right? These are like the two hot button things with tops is your mobility and how it fits breasts. So pants are no different. You think of how it fits here and how it feels when you walk, right? It's kind of the same thing, like how you're sitting and how you're walking. And if you don't have the pants in like where you want them, don't even think about fitting down there because you're just going to have to refit it later. I know how hard it is to ignore it, but please, for your sanity's sake, focus on pulling these pants up or letting them down where you want that waist to sit on you and getting that circumference right for everything above here. So I created this funny little sample here. Now, if you were trying to fit this little like mini skirt, you could do it, right? Like this would be pretty easy, right? You can think of this like if this was a mirror image and it was just this little skirt, that seems really easy to fit right now, doesn't it? All you have to worry about is the circumference and where you want it, and you're not worried about anything below that. And I think that if you can kind of envision the pant divided with the full hip line and below being the second half of your fitting process, it's a lot easier to consider fitting just this upper portion, because you're only worried about total circumference and the length from waist to where you want it to end. Let's pretend like your hip is the hemline, right? And in the same vein, if you only had to fit the leg, right, this lower portion here, yes, I know this whole area here is really tricky. Trust me, I do know that. But if you were just thinking about this as a circumference issue, it'd be a lot easier to fit, right? And this is why when people are saying, look for the wrinkles, are they a vertical wrinkle? Then it's a circumference issue. If it's a horizontal wrinkle, it's a length issue. And you can kind of isolate, okay, am I getting a vertical wrinkle through this area of my pant? Okay, it's too big around. Am I getting a wrinkle under my bum here, you know? That's more, I can't even grab this. Ugh. Like it's horizontal, then we're talking about it's too long there. There's too much fabric in the length, right? So if you can kind of isolate the area of the body that you're thinking about, it sort of simplifies the fitting process. You just can kind of divorce the top from the bottom, because this is a pattern that has 3 cylinders involved. We have the torso cylinder, right? We have this cylinder, and then we have these 2 legs that attach to it, not unlike your arm to the body of a top or a blouse or something like that, right? It's the same idea. You have the cylinder of the torso, and then you have the arms, 2 cylinders as well. Okay, so when I spoke about thinking of your fitting as in planes, besides sort of divorcing this top portion from the bottom portion in your initial fitting, the other thing I like to think about is, you know, and really it's because I want you to know why it's so difficult. I mean, you know why it's so difficult, but you are trying to fit 4 different planes with these 2 different cylinders. So think about it this way. So we have this plane right here. You have your back, right? And it sort of stops right here and then becomes your side. So now we have this plane right here, right? And then we have our front. So we have our front and our back and our side, and then we also have our inseam here. And so if you were to think of these planes, there's a line right here, right? So I think of this one right here happening right about where that low hip hits, right here, and down, and then this, so this is one little plane, and you have a front and a back involved, right? So there's a lot going on just on this one little plane. And then here, if you were to look at just this area here, straight down, right? And then we have this side, which also includes front and back. So there are 4 planes. You have 3 cylinders. You have an upper and you have a lower. So yes, it's tricky. So boil it down. Find the simplest thing to start with. I want you to start with everything above your low hip point, your fullest point here, right? Get these pants, pull them up or let them down to where you want that waist to hit you. And don't not do that. Don't not do that. Don't think, oh, I don't really know. I have to just deal with my waist being up here. And then what happens is the waist slips down and you have a saggy crotch down there, and you're trying to lift the pants up down here when really it's this whole length, right? All right, so here's another little view about zones, right? So here on the right, we have a side view, and that red is representing that inseam plane. And you can kind of see that we can barely see the whole pant, right? Because we're only looking at that one plane. So if we were looking at their side view, we'd only see their side. And of course, we're not all boxes or rectangles. I'm just trying to illustrate that we are fitting these different depths, right? They're different. So now on the left, we have this other plane here, and you can see the red represents the side seam and the inseam plane again, and then we have these front planes, all right? So this brings me to something else I want to talk about. There is a lot of fitting terms out there, especially with pants fitting, and one of them is crotch depth. And crotch depth is measured 2 completely different ways, and they're both 100% accurate. Sometimes someone will measure crotch depth as if this person was, let's say they were sitting in a chair and this leg is out front, right? They're sitting in a chair, so here's the surface of the chair. They would measure from the waist to where the bum sits on the chair. That right there would be one crotch depth. The other crotch depth is you from front to back, like this, from here to here. So I always say belly button to spine, just so I know someone knows exactly, you know, that I'm going through the body. But it's not technically belly button to spine, right? It's just the depth of you here. So this one I find to be far more critical in the fitting process, because sometimes when you see how patterns are graded, they're not even giving any difference in the grade for the crotch depth. I just ran across a pattern the other day like that, and I was using the pattern for another tutorial. And so I wanted to stack the grade because it was a grading video. And I noticed while doing that, that if you stacked all of the back crotch rises on top of one another, and you stacked all the front, and you took like this point here as the point where you stacked them all, there was no difference in the depth from across the front to back. So I'm not sure how someone who's a size 0 is going to be the same depth as someone who's a size 20. It could happen because this brings me to my other thing. We take up space in here very differently from one another. One size 20 person and another size 20 person could be a completely different silhouette. One of them might be more of like a flatter oval if you were to look at a cross section straight down, and another one might be more of a rounded oval the other direction, right, from front to back. So there are lots of ways to take this space up, and that's why it gets kind of tricky, right? So when I think of this depth, I'm thinking on this plane here, what do I measure from here to here? And that's why you're doing crotch extensions or decreasing the crotch here. Maybe you have a flat bum, maybe you have a protruding belly. This area here is what's going to be affected by that. This whole plane here is this front to back crotch depth, right? And your total circumference, right, for like say you're measuring your hip or your waist, that's everything from above this low hip point, right? You're adjusting the top part of this pattern when you're talking about that circumference. And then when you're looking at maybe a fitting issue in the leg, you're going to fit the leg, right? So there's a few different ways to look at this. So I have some graphics I want to share with you as well. All right, so I want to show you a few things here with some graphics. And not all these things may speak to you, but maybe one of them does, and it will be a nice light bulb for you. So I'm going to show you a few different things. First off, I'm going to kind of reiterate this whole concept of planes, right? So on the left, we have a pant pattern. This one right here is the back. This one's the front, okay? This is the out seam going down. This is the inseam right here, okay? This is the right leg. On the right here, we have this box. Now, if we were to put this pant on top of this box in this plane kind of formation, right? We have this right here, this inseam plane right here, that is right here, okay? And then we have the front, the back, right? So we have the front and the back. And then we have the out seam, side seam on this plane right here. So let me show you. It's going to look a little messy, but just, you know, squint. So here we have it. So now you can see here is my inseam right here, right? And you can see this point right here is right here. This point right here is right here. And then you can see here's my back. There's that dart right there is the back, right? So this little section right here, the front right here, and then we have our out seam right here. Whoops, right here, okay? So this is the body as planes. So now I want you to imagine two people and their waists are exactly the same and their hip is exactly the same. They would pick the same size as each other, but they are shaped very differently. So we're going to pretend like we're a bird in the sky and we're looking down on them from above. One of them is shaped like this, and one of them is shaped like this. And this is the front, this is the back, side seam, right? And the really interesting one, here's the inseam for each person, all right? They are very different people, right? So we have them side by side. So now, if we were to look at the pant pattern and we were to make changes to reflect these two different people, their pant patterns would be fit completely differently. So I want to show you what that would look like so you can kind of get an idea of why these different planes make sense when you're thinking about it this way, because it's all about this negative space right here. So, you know, this person right here on the left, her or his negative space is much narrower, right? And the person on the right is much wider. But when you look at them on this plane here, the person on the left is going to be wider and the person on the right is going to be narrower, right? So let me show you what those patterns would look like. Okay, so I went through and I have basically altered these pants in a very loose format, obviously, so that it's going to reflect these two different silhouettes, right? So we have these two different oval-shaped people, and you can see the key at the top. You know, the blue and the pink are getting smaller, and the orange and the green are getting larger. So we're going to compare these pants now because we can tell these people are the same size if you measure them for their waist and their hip, but they aren't the same when you look at the depth here, you know, like this right here, right? So here is our original pant here, right? So basically we can tell like this left one, remember this is the oval. So this person is wider, but has a narrower depth. And so they're going to need more space across the front plane there. So you can see I'm looking at this right here as a plane, right? Or this and right here is a plane. And then this is a plane. And then that inseam, right, as a plane. So I know it's a lot to try and comprehend when you're looking at it. So you can see that this plane, if I line this up right here to here, that got wider, right? And on this one, it got a lot narrower. So see, if I line this up, it got narrower, right? So now let's compare these two silhouettes. I'm going to reduce the opacity here so we can just superimpose it, right? So we'll put it right on top here. So if I'm stacking this right here at this crotch point of the back, you can see that it got larger across this front plane right here and narrower right there, right? So that depth, you see that difference there, right? That got wider on this oval here above. It got narrower over here. So when we're looking at this zone here is the blue, right? The green is the green there for the inseam. So obviously they're going to take up the space here in the pants very differently from one another, even though they measure the same and they would select the same size. So I thought this would be kind of a fun way to sort of look at why you can pick this one size and it doesn't work for you. But it could work for your best friend who measures the exact same thing, you know, because or you might even be surprised that you guys measure the same thing, or, you know, knowing how each of you looks, you know. This also has a lot to do with height differences or just a distribution of your body in these different spaces. All right, well, thanks for spending time with me and Jelly Bean here. There's probably gonna be more and more videos with Jelly Bean. And you know, at the end of the day, if you're comfortable, that's the perfect fitting pair of pants. My pants all fit very differently from one another. If you really want good fitting clothes, it's a journey and it's a process and there's so many variables. Please be kind to yourself because obviously you can tell one pattern cannot fit every person that measures this one set of measurements, right? So hopefully that helps kind of make you a little bit more forgiving towards patterns, yourself, your fitting process. And remember, fabric plays a huge role in how things are going to be fitting you. and how they're going to sew up. So don't discount fabric choice. Make a muslin, or make something that's a sample so you can get a good fit, and because you're worth it, right? You're worth all this effort. All right, well, hopefully I see you around. Join my guild if you want. It's free. I'm in a bit of a video slump right now, not because I'm not making them, but because for some reason I can't seem to like my videos very much. So I'm not finishing them, or I'm finishing them and not posting them. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully I'll get past this. And I decided today was the day I was just going to have a little fun and get this little idea out there to you guys, to see what you guys are doing with your pant fitting, just to see if I can kind of get you across the finish line with your project. I don't know. I love talking about this, so I hope you do too. Thanks for watching.